One day, Otto and I found ourselves standing in front of just such a depot, in front of which a Kriegsverlängerungsrat had placed himself together with his assistants to stop famished soldiers from getting in. In spite of the fact that the Russians were not far from the village, the official stood his ground and denied the soldiers access, saying that he had orders to blow the place apart but not to let it be open before that. As the crowd of soldiers steadily grew and the official stood his ground, the debate was settled with a sudden burst of fire from a submachine gun. The corpse was unceremoniously shoved aside, and the starving men went into the depot, egged on by an Oberfeldwebel as the charges were set to blow in 20 minutes. We couldn't believe what we saw. Everyone stuffed his pockets full. "Take only the best," Otto suggested. "When the Russians are after us, you'll throw away half of it." Otto was right. But what was the best? Everything we saw was of value to us half-starved individuals. Where did all of these goodies come from? These luxuries I had never seen up at the front? Who were these delicious hard salami and smoked hams supposed to be for? At the front we had soft cheese or canned meat at best. In one corner I discovered cases of wonderful chocolate cola in cans. In my entire service career I had been able to get this from the canteen precisely twice. "Man, look at this golden liquid," Otto called over as he held up a bottle of French cognac. "A bit different from that kidney water juniper brandy which we soldiers always get." Otto was eagerly tearing open some of the highly sought-after front Kempfer Päckchen, which we seldom had the luck to receive. He only took out the packs of cigarettes, throwing the rest of the goodies away. There was no knowing what treasures were being stored in this warehouse, while we at the front had suffered hunger for days on end when our kitchen could not deliver food to the front line. Or was this stuff just not meant for us? I wanted to know. Meant yes, but the best stuff always gets looted on the way. Mostly it goes to the staffs. I've seen that myself, Otto explains. What I've seen would make your eyes pop. I saw it all when I was an orderly. It's always that way when something passes through a lot of hands. It's not even the high-ranking officers who take advantage, but those who want to brown-nose their superiors. It is no different with the kitchen wallahs. The best goes to the person they want to suck up to. Otto shoved a huge piece of cheese in his mouth which he had taken from another Unteroffizier on the blade of a knife. "We should get a job like that," interjected his friend, who, in the meantime, had half-emptied the bottle. "Well, that'd be okay, but it's not for us old foot-sloggers, right?" He grabbed his friend around the shoulder and said heavily, "We have both been lying in the dirt too long." As the Oberfeldwebel hurried us out because of the danger from the explosions due any moment, I came across a room with some new jackboots next to some uniforms. As my own boots were soaking wet and swollen up, I quickly tried on a new pair. However, in my haste, I decided on some which were one size too large, thinking I could fill out the extra room with an extra pair of socks or foot warmers. I shouldn't have, because in the deep slime the new boots rubbed my feet and made them so bloody that I only could drag myself along in agony, and at times literally got stuck. The only one who stayed with me was Otto. He also had blisters on his feet, but he said he could stand it. I often wonder how I will be able to manage to run as the Russians beat us back now. My feet are raw flesh. As soon as I stop, I suffer awful pain. Now I understand what you are prepared to go through when your life depends on it. During the day I go through hell with my feet, and at night the yells of the oncoming Soviets rip me out of my death-like sleep. I recall that for weeks afterwards, on quiet days, I would wake up from nightmares in which a deep voice of a yelling Russian had been following me around. He was forever on our heels shouting, "Hurrah!" and never giving us any respite. How I would have loved to have given this noisy devil a burst. But only having my pistol, Otto's submachine gun was out of ammunition. It would have been suicide. So in my terror, I preferred to run for my life on raw flesh. Many soldiers did not manage to get away and were shot out of hand or bayoneted. Others were driven crazy and went for the attacking Soviets with their bare hands or fell on their knees and begged for mercy. The Soviet soldiers just laughed as they massacred them. I didn't notice any prisoners being taken. It was days before the yelling behind us stopped, but instead we can now see the Soviet soldiers marching forward on both sides of us, almost near enough to touch. They do not even bother to get into position to fire on us. We are a sorry sight, tired and bedraggled. They do take the liberty of taunting us with a victory pose as they pass by on their little wagons loaded with all kinds of things. This seems to me to be downright grotesque, to see the enemy so near at hand just marching by instead of fighting with him, and to be shown only threatening fists and ridicule. Occasionally, their advance units run into strong German opposition. Then they withdraw and leave behind masses of murdered Russian women and children in the villages, hacked to death along the muddy roads and in the houses. Above all, there remains an unremitting hatred towards the Germans and towards all those who have served them during the occupation. They don't ask if those who have served have done so voluntarily or if they have been forced to do it. It's enough that they have lived under German occupation. The Russian army demands obedience without equivocation to the patriotic slogan, "Rather dead than enslaved." The same words always come from those on the winning side, the motive always being hatred for all who think differently. If everyone temporarily forced to do something against his will or his convictions had to be struck down, very soon there would be nobody left. These women, murdered by their own forces, were really only normal, everyday women. God knows they didn't want to work for their occupiers, they only wanted to survive. These terrible pictures send an additional shiver into my body, driving me forward ever more determinedly. I have the feeling that I am wading through blood in my boots. When we arrive at a village in which a group of stout-hearted soldiers has just driven the Russians out, I suffer terrible pains which I simply cannot stand. My feet are burning, as if I've been running over hot coals. For the first time I shout with pain, "I am finished, Otto. Nobody can run on raw flesh all the way to the bug." "You have to," Otto insists and tries to calm me. We are about 100 meters behind the last of the trailing party. Nobody pays any attention to us. And why should they? Everyone's had enough. And what difference would it make anyway if one person stays behind and dies? But I don't want to peg out, not yet. I grit my teeth and drag myself forward once again. The fire in hell can't be worse than this, I think, and at the same time I bite my lip until it oozes blood for having let my willpower slip. But after a short period the pain is so unbelievable that I resign myself to my fate. I am completely finished, and my willpower is paralyzed. I can go on no further. I can't take another step. With a groan, I let myself fall into the mud. Otto wants to get me going. He even tries the Russian yell and calls me a lazy dog and so on. I don't react. My spirit is broken. The pain almost finishes me at every step. "It's over, Otto. I can't take any more. I'm going to stay here come what may. I just don't give a damn," I moan. "When the Russians come, I've got my pistol. But you hurry on, Otto, so you can catch up with the rest." Otto is livid. "Don't talk such nonsense. Let's at least go to the next hut. When you have rested for a bit, we might be able to go a little further." He takes me under the arm and helps me up. A hot current runs through my body, reaching up into my throat. Is this the end? Damn. I've been on the front lines for months and have at most been slightly wounded in the many close combats, and now my life is hanging in the balance all because of a couple of lousy army boots which are tearing the skin off my bones. Well, I guess it has to be that way. I could of course have pulled off the boots long ago and run barefoot as so many others are doing. However, when I see what has happened to so many of the men who have done just that, and what infections and other problems they have picked up from the mud, I decide that I would rather keep the boots on. In any case, I would probably never have been able to get the boots back on again due to the swellings. With Otto's help, I managed to drag myself to the next cabin. It's empty, but we come across a small chunk of bread and a glass jar containing some beets. The food gives us some new energy, but it also makes me dead tired, and while Otto snoops around the cabin and outside, I lie down on an iron bedstead with the army blanket wrapped around me and immediately fall asleep. Eventually I can hear my name being called as if from far away, so I get up and drag myself to the door. Otto is waving to me from the other side of the street, beckoning me to join him. Beside him are two scruffy-looking Russian ponies, two hemp ropes rather than the normal bridles around their necks. He has a broad grin on his face. Took me a good half hour to round up these little beasts, but they're our only chance of getting out of here in a hurry. With that, he presses one rope into my hand and is already on the back of his pony, without even asking me if I can ride. My pony is not a big animal, and with a single bound I am on his back and pressing my legs around his belly. He immediately stands up on his front legs, raises his hindquarters, and starts shaking like a wet cat. I slide forward and am almost thrown off, but at the last moment manage to hold on to his bushy mane. "Daway, daway," yells Otto as he slams his heels into his animal's flanks. The pony trots along and is soon several meters in front of me. Then my one scurries after Otto's, jolting my bones, and only by clinging onto the mane can I manage to stop it unseating me. This riding is good fun, I decide, but only if you know how. I have only ridden once, and that was on a fat old farm horse. It was in the first year of the war, when we were ordered by the school to help bring in the harvest. I remember that riding on that thing was much easier than riding on this spindly creature. Otto's pony goes too slowly for his liking, so he smacks the nag on the neck and digs his heels into its flanks, but the little horse doesn't move any faster. In return, it tries to snap at his legs. My pony copies what his is doing, just as if they had agreed upon it. He too bends his head back towards me and snaps at my knees. I move backwards and just about manage to cling on to his mane. One foot is already dragging on the ground. "This devil will be the end of me yet," I moan, and because of his jerking gait, I am rattled from side to side, and it sounds as if I am stuttering. I slide from left to right and back again, and feel like a bundle of clothes on an old wheelbarrow. I can feel every jolt the blessed thing makes as my backside lands against the animal's bony spine. "No, Otto, I'd rather get off and walk, even on these bad feet," I call to him in a stuttering voice. Otto, who is in front of me, turns around, then ducks suddenly flat alongside the neck of his nag. "The Russians!" he calls, and then rifle salvos rattle off from between the houses and the bullets zip around our ears. My nag makes a leap and stretches his legs in a gallop, with me pressing my chest against his neck and clinging to his mane. We easily overtake Otto, who is also now galloping. Suddenly I find riding to my liking. I feel as if I am in a cradle, and notice with pleasure that we are very quickly putting some distance between ourselves and the enemy fire. Both animals have passed the last of the houses and are now galloping on out on the open steppe. Then mine, out in front, stops suddenly and snorts so heavily that the foam flies into my face. As I turn around, Otto comes sweeping by. The mane of the little beast waves in the wind, and Otto, in his fur cap, looks like a Cossack on the attack. He stops beside me. Even though it is light, we can't see the village behind us. My pony moves off at a canter, and I again start bouncing around like a bundle of rags. Later, we come across another village, and he stops and decides not to take another step. Otto's follows its lead, and they both look at us scornfully. "We have to get down," says Otto. "They're in one of their moods. I've seen this before. Panjay ponies are unpredictable." "Good. We'll walk until they get over it and let them stretch their legs," I say, glad to be able to dismount. Every bone in my body is aching, it seems, and my rear end has pretty well had it. Nevertheless, thanks to the food and sleep, my feet have had a chance to recover a bit, and I'm not now in so much pain when I walk. As we approach the village, Otto can see through his field glasses that there are lots of Russians there, so we are forced to skirt round the village using a Rachel. By the time we are almost past it, shots are again being fired from behind and also from the side. We are up on the backs of the animals again like lightning, and fortunately they are already upset and want to get away. They are off at a gallop as if the devil himself was after them. We don't mind. They relax into a trot only when we reach the broad, well-used mud road of the retreating troops. We continue westward through the mud and the hard-packed steppe. There are frequent downpours, and the ice-cold wind causes our bodies to stiffen. We give the ponies food and water on the way, but instead of being grateful, they continue to be temperamental. Every now and then they stop and stand still, and nothing we can say will cajole them into moving. Even when we try to trick them with a few rounds from Otto's submachine gun, the little devils show no reaction. They know full well who it is that's doing the shooting, us, not the enemy. When we go to pat them kindly on their heads, they snap and even try to bite us. They don't react to friendship, the aggressive little buggers. We reckon they must have been very harshly treated in the past. And every time my pony stares at me with his pale yellow eyes after he has been having a go at me, I always get the feeling that the little devil is laughing. Not until we have organized some old blankets and placed these over their sharp bones do they become a little easier to get along with, allowing us to ride for a bit longer, but again, only until they decide to stop and to go through the old routine about not wanting to move. We're completely dependent upon the mood of these small shaggy beasts, but, even so, we're thankful that they have carried us for days on their backs, although I will frequently think back about my seriously taxed rear end. Somewhere far beyond the Ingul and near the Jalanas, our riding days are over. One day, as we are looking around in some houses for quarters, having tied up the ponies at a tree, they suddenly vanish. As the ropes had not been torn away by force, we know full well that they've been stolen, along with their blankets, by other soldiers. It is the middle of March and the height of the muddy season. From now on, we join the retreating masses once more. Resistance is only offered if the enemy comes too close. Superiors are always trying to form combat units out of the demoralized men, but these dissipate after short periods of resistance. One day we find ourselves at a supply depot. We fill our pockets with chocolate, cigarettes, and other items. Just as we are about to down a thick slice of beer sausage, several mortar rounds crash nearby and a soldier on the outside yells, "The Soviets are coming!" Electrified, everyone jumps up and runs to the exit. An unteroffizier from one of the vehicles has already rolled out several diesel and petrol drums and then set fire to them. The jets of flame just miss his back. The Soviets are at the other end of the depot, and we soldiers run and pile onto the vehicles to get away faster. The crews curse and try to push some of the men away, but they cling to the vehicles like blackfly and fight each other for any free space. We manage just to hang on to a bit of the side cover, mainly to help us to get through the mud a bit faster. A soldier calls out, "No more space, comrade. Let go, otherwise we'll have to get down." The damn fellow then stamps on our fingers with the heel of his boot until they bleed. We just have to let go and we fall into the mud. There are many more like us. Otto is angry. "They aren't human anymore. They're just animals, and don't give a toss if other people die, just as long as they can save themselves, and they have the cheek to call us comrade. No space anymore, comrade. I am sorry, comrade. They're the ones who are getting away, damn it. I'd like to punch them on the nose. What the hell do they know about comrades and the friendships which exist on the front lines? They spit out the word so easily, without understanding what it really means." Otto has worked up a real fury, but afterwards he feels a bit better. He has also said exactly what I am thinking. We clean off the worst of the mud and then run along in the trail left by the half-track. The Soviets are to the side, behind us, and are shooting at individual soldiers who try to take refuge among the houses. "Here comes another half-track," Otto yells. "We've got to get up on this one, otherwise we've had it." This vehicle is also full to bursting with soldiers. We run along beside it and wave to the driver. Then a Stabswachtmeister sticks his head out and gives the driver a signal. The half-track is now driving at a walking pace. We notice that the man's epaulette piping is the same gold-yellow as ours. He has also noticed that on us, and he stretches out his hands to Otto and me and asks, "Which squadron?" "First of the 21st, we answer in unison. "Come on, I'm from the 8th of the 21st, he replies, and shoves one soldier from the running board to the front mudguard and pulls another into the driver's cab. We both jump up onto the running board and hold on to the door. That's what you call being saved at the last moment. We are thankful that the Soviets behind us haven't got any heavy weapons, otherwise we would not have got away so easily. We managed to escape with only a few slightly wounded, me among them. I caught a glancing hit below the knee, a ricochet. It's only a graze, though, as were the others earlier. It doesn't cause any problems. At the next stop, I need only stick a plaster on it. Although we lose sight of the other vehicles for several hours, we drive over the bridge on the river Jalanas. There we run into another combat unit, which has a number of men from our own unit. A capable officer has tried to hold up the advancing enemy by counterattacking, and has even managed to push him back for a short while. In one of the recaptured villages, I get hold of a German submachine gun from a Soviet officer, and with it several magazines of ammunition. He also has 2 German wristwatches on his arm. In the village, we can see the atrocities that have been committed by the Soviet soldiers against their own people, this bloody war involving women and children. I think of Katya in Dniprovka and her prayer that the war should be over soon. Wojna kaput. How often she and many others prayed for that. And now, if her own troops move into her village, it will be their death sentence too. The hatred for those who had lived under the Germans has become bestial. The thorn of revenge sits so deep in their flesh that they can't stop killing even their own people. And then they tell us in their propaganda leaflets that they will treat us, their enemies, very well if we surrender. In the next few days, we'll be getting close to the river Bug. This is supposed to be our interim destination. We're told that the enemy will be brought to a standstill here by strong German forces. However, before we reach the Bug, we have to survive a couple of very dangerous days, with our units scattered in all directions because of the overwhelming strength of an attacking Soviet force. To add to the misery, the rain is teeming down by the bucketful, making the mud and slime deeper and deeper, and making walking virtually impossible. We hang on to the frame of the ponge wagons, whose wet tarpaulins are blown about like the sails of a ship by the freezing easterly wind and smack us round our ears. It is a pitiful picture. The little ponge wagons, along with the tenacious, hardy steppe horses, are, in the end, the only means of transport for the troops. Tired, beaten, and as hungry as wolves, we reach the German reception stations at the Bug. Our unit has already been transferred from Vosnesensk to Kantakusenka on the west side of the river, where there is another reception station. Here we discover that most of our unit has already been flown by Junkers 52 to Kishinev in Romania. Otto and I remain in our quarters for 3 days, making ourselves more or less human again. Then, as it is assumed that the last of stragglers from our unit have already reported in, we and some others are flown in an old Junkers 52 without seats directly to our unit in Kishinev. Although I have flown at the glider school at Sensburg in East Prussia, this is nevertheless my first flight in a motor-driven aircraft. Thinking back, I can say that this flight in the old Tantaju was really enjoyable, not least because we were finally leaving Russia. This concludes the 21st part of the story. Thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe for more episodes and leave a comment.